In this Old Guy DIY video, we will be doing a pretty complete stereo install in a 2003 Chevrolet Suburban. So we already came in here in a dash, removed the OEM, made some cuts in this plastic bracket so that it'll fit a Pioneer doubled in, and then we'll be wiring up all the speakers. It has steering wheel controls, so we will have to do some wiring for that. We're also adding a backup camera and tying that into the reverse lights. We'll also add a microphone so that it has hands-free calling. So there's going to be a ton of different wiring. I'll try and walk you through it. All of the links for all of the parts will be in the description. So the first thing we have is this little plug is the OEM harness from GM. This new one right here with all the colorful wires is an aftermarket. I believe it's Scotia. I'll put the link in the description. And then this is a plug that goes into the Pioneer head unit. So if you get the right part here, this is pretty easy. All of the speaker wires are color matched. You can solder if you want to do it the right way. I've always done the wire nuts, never had a problem. So, you know, green to green, green with black to green with black. The only complicated ones, or the ones that you might get confused, are yellow and red for ignition and 12-volt constant. You've also got this, there's a long green wire, which I cut off most of. This is all the rest. This is supposed to tie into your parking brake, so the head unit knows when you're parked, so that you can watch videos, things like that. The cheat code here is don't actually turn it into the parking brake. We will be taking the green wire and we will be attaching it to the ground so that it thinks that it's always triggered, and then you can illegally watch whatever you want while you're driving. So as part of this wiring process, one of the annoying things is GM did not put a 12-volt switched in this wire harness. So you'll have a 12-volt constant, but not a switched. And you need the switched to tell the radio when to turn on. Otherwise, your radio will just always turn on. So as part of the Scotia kit or whatever, you'll be given this red wire. And what we're doing is tapping into the fuse over here. So we come up here to this blue 15. This is the rear windshield wiper fuse. It's only active when the ignition is on or the car is on, so that's your 12-volt switched. So we plugged it in there. Then we'll take this other end and we will run it through the dash over back to the radio so that we have 12-volt switched. All right, so to route that 12-volt switched, I stuck it down and then went below the dash and ran it all the way up so that it's coming through this other side. So this is our 12-volt switched. It's nice that they included red wire with the kit, because red wire on all of these harnesses also happens to be 12-volt switched. Now what we're going to do is kind of hook up all of the powers and all of the grounds, because there will be a lot, you know, for the steering wheel control, the backup camera, the radio, all of that. So in my lap here, I have the wiring for the backup camera. It's a long mess because it goes all the way to the back of the car, but pretty simple. If I can grab it here, it's got black is negative, red is positive, and we will be tying those into positive and negative on this harness. And then also over here, this is the wiring for the steering wheel controls. So I'll also be plugging that into positive and negative. And we'll go from there. So this is the XS WSC1, I think. Again, link will be in the description. It's just for the steering wheel controls. Has all these wires, looks really confusing, but we're really only going to need 3. So the 3 that we're going to need are we're going to need red, which is going to be the 12-volt switched. We're going to need black, which is going to be ground, and then we're going to take this pink wire. And this pink wire is we're going to have to splice into this radio harness in the A1 pin. So I found this in the manual on the website. And then when you look at the back of the clip here, you can see A1 is that green wire on the right. So we're just going to splice that, attach the green wire to the pink wire with a wire nut, and then the ground and the power, and that should take care of the steering wheel controls. So this is the continuation of the wire mess. I really should have just laid all this out outside the vehicle to show you. Live and learn. So if you recall, I mentioned there were going to be a lot tied into this power and a lot tied into this ground. So what we've got here, this red coming in is from that 15 amp fuse. Then we've got the positive that goes to the backup camera. We've got the positive that goes to the radio. We've got the positive that comes from GM. And then we've also got the positive that goes over there to the steering wheel control. And then for the negatives over here, we've got the green parking brake from the radio. We've got the negative from the radio. We've got the negative from the GM OEM harness. We've got the negative from the steering wheel control. And then we also have the negative for the backup camera. So in theory, right now, this should be the majority of the wires. This 3.5 millimeter over here is for the steering wheel control that goes in the back of the radio. And then over here somewhere, this brown cord is from the backup camera that also goes in the back of the radio. But the majority of the wiring is done here. I'll clean it up a bit. We'll put the radio in and see if it turns on. Do we have sound? Because this vehicle is equipped over there with Bose, I do believe there will be an amplifier either in there or in here, which we'll have to do more wiring in order to get speaker output. I hope that's not the case, but that usually is what I've seen in the past. So we'll tidy up this a little bit, do a test run with the radio, and see what we can find. All right, so as a test, we should have almost everything wired in here. We've got the pink wire for the steering wheel control into the A1 pin of the OEM harness. We've got all of these are speaker wires, and there should be a jumble of red. Those are all your power wires, and then a jumble of black over here for ground. In the back of the Pioneer unit, this brown cable here is for the backup camera. We've got the large harness over here, which controls all the radio. This 3.5 millimeter that goes into the WR port right there is for the steering wheel controls. And then this is the radio harness. So if we turn it to accessory, we should see that everything boots up. There's no sound right now because, as I suspected, it has a Bose amplifier, so I have to go do some more work somewhere around there. But we should be able to test this and see that the backup camera works. And here we can see that the backup camera works. Right now it's just laying in the seat. Everything's a mess. We'll get that properly hooked up so that when the car gets put in reverse, it comes on automatically. So in this generation of Chevy, if you have the Bose system, there are two locations that the amp can be. The first location is over here in the glove box. There is not one in this vehicle, which means that it will be under the center console here. So I'll show you how to get there and what wires we need to arrange to bypass the Bose amp so that the speakers are getting power from the new head unit. Alright, so it's been a while since I've done one that had the amp in the center console. I've done quite a few that have them in the glove box. I believe it'll just be these Phillips screws. We'll pull this out of the center console, and then we'll be able to look at the wires. So I took out these Phillips on here. I'm not sure if that was necessary because I pulled out this thing in the center, and there are 4 Phillips here, which it looks like those are the main ones that are holding this in. So I suspect those are more important, and these may not need to be pulled out, but we have them out, so we'll take them all out. So I can confirm it was these 5 Phillips on the outside, and then the 4 in the middle, and then this will just lift up, revealing the Bose amplifier inside. I'm going to look at an older video that we did a couple years ago that has all the wiring schematic and stuff, and essentially what we'll be doing is jumping some wires, I believe, from this plug to bypass this Bose amplifier. The Bose amps are pretty much crap anyways, and it's the easiest way to get your speakers working with the head unit, so that's what we'll be doing. Alright, so this connector that has the blue clip from over here is what you're going to want. It has all of the inputs and the outputs for the Bose amp. You can see most of these are kind of tied around each other like mated pairs. We had a schematic up from another video, so just went and cut all of these. And then we'll be, again, wire nutting them back together, left and right, front and back, all that happy stuff, and then we should have sound. Alright, so it's gotten a little late. I had to look at some schematics and stuff, but essentially you will be combining 3 wires in 4 separate pairs, or 4 separate whatever. So you have 4 wire nuts in here, inputs to outputs, and now we actually have radio. Let's see if I can do this. So we've got radio now. Kind of the last thing to do is back here you can see this is the access steering wheel control. It's flickering, so I will have to program this so that it works with the steering wheel here, then hook up the backup camera, and then this will be ready to go. So at this point we've done all of the testing. We've seen that the radio works. We bypassed the Bose amp so the speakers work. We've tested the backup camera. We've programmed, wherever it is, the steering wheel control, and now all that's left is to run 3 wires to the rear of the car for the backup camera. So from the Pioneer head unit, there's this purple and white wire. It says reverse gear signal input. For whatever reason, they don't include a cable with any of the kits, which is weird. So you'll just need some speaker wire or whatever thin wire. In this case, for a Suburban, it's like 16 feet or something to run to the back of the car. And then the other thing is, coming out of the backup camera, you'll have this power and ground, red and black, and then they consolidate on the other end down here into 1 wire, and this will clip into the backup camera. So I just fed those 3 wires down this hole. They're all kind of hanging here. I'll eventually wire them up under the dash with zip ties, and then now we just have to run. I've pulled these trim pieces off, and we'll run those wires to the back of the car and see that the dash cam or the backup camera is wired properly. As far as wire management, you can probably figure it out, but if you can't or you want some tips, I have both of these wires here, and then just route them behind the parking brake. We will go probably up and over the OBD2, come over and zip tie to these wires here, and then you'll just be running them with all of these wires all the way to the back. So here's where we ended up mounting the backup camera, and then just ran the wire through this weather sealing. It'll go under the trim panel, and we came in and ran all of the wires through there. And the last thing that you need to do is poke a hole in where the rear tail light would be, and then you're going to splice a wire into the positive of the reverse light. So in this case, for this vehicle, it was the middle bulb here, and it was the green wire, so we spliced into that. And then this wire runs all the way up to the backup or the parking input or the reverse input on the head unit, and that way every time you throw the vehicle in reverse, the backup light turns on automatically. To finish this video, I'll show that it just starts. We've got the steering wheel controls hooked up. And then if you've done the install correctly, when you put the vehicle in reverse, it should automatically engage the reverse camera. And when you put it in park or drive, then it goes away.